Here's the brief news from the world over this week. The Republican presidential field is beginning to take shape. Senator Ted Cruz's win in Monday's Iowa caucus solidified his standing as a top-tier candidate. He, Donald Trump, and Marco Rubio, with his better-than-expected third-place showing, lead the field. In New Hampshire, Trump commands a huge lead in the latest tracking polls. Some have him standing at 36%. Rubio has edged into second place ahead of Cruz. Making their last stands are the governors, Jeb Bush, John Kasich, and Chris Christie. More with Senator Cruz about his Iowa win, Donald Trump's charges of voter fraud, and Cruz's strategy for New Hampshire in our next segment. And on the Democratic side, it is a race indeed. After Hillary Clinton's squeaker in Iowa, which was won by a coin toss, literally, Bernie Sanders holds a double-digit lead in New Hampshire. The candidates have now agreed to a new series of debates, including Thursday's face-off in Durham, New Hampshire. During a town hall-style forum on Wednesday, both sides continued their ongoing argument over who is more committed to and capable of carrying out a progressive agenda on health care, income inequality, and workers' rights. Back on Capitol Hill, the United States House on Tuesday failed to override President Barack Obama's veto of legislation that would have repealed key provisions of Obamacare and stripped federal funding from Planned Parenthood. The 241 to 186 vote fell short of the two-thirds needed, ensuring that the Affordable Care Act will remain in place. Still, Speaker Paul Ryan repeated the GOP pledge to end Obamacare in time.
This fight will not end here. We have now forged a path that is a clear path to repealing Obamacare without 60 votes in the Senate. So what we are proving today, that is, if we have a Republican president next year, we will repeal Obamacare.
President Obama on Wednesday came to the defense of Muslim Americans, saying he wants to correct what he called a hugely distorted impression of them. Obama made the comments during his first visit as president to an American mosque. In an address Wednesday at the Islamic Society of Baltimore, the president said those who demonize all Muslims for the acts of a few terrorists are playing into extremist hands.
This is a time of concern and, frankly, a time of some fear. Like all Americans, you're worried about the threat of terrorism. You also have another concern, and that is your entire community so often is targeted or blamed for the violent acts of the very few.
The president went on to decry the inexcusable political rhetoric against Muslims, an apparent reference to Donald Trump's terror concerns. More on this later in the show. Meanwhile, terror attacks continue abroad. At least 60 people were killed and dozens wounded on Sunday by a car bomb and two suicide bombers in Damascus. Muslims adjacent to Syria's holiest Shia shrine were targeted. The Islamic State claimed responsibility. The attack occurred as Syria's government and its divided opposition convened in Geneva for the first UN-mediated peace talks. The UN is aiming for 6 months of talks, first to seek a ceasefire and later to hammer out a political settlement for Syria. The nearly 5-year conflict has killed more than 250,000 people and driven more than 10 million from their homes. Pope Francis is taking fire this week for some laudatory comments he made about the communist regime in China. The Pope expressed both respect for and awe of China, its culture, and its role in the world in an interview with the Hong Kong online daily Asia Times. The Holy Father called China a reference point of greatness. He made no mention of China's human rights abuses or its one-child policy. And he chose not to address any of the restrictions placed on the Catholic Church or address the missing and imprisoned clergy currently in China. Vatican journalist Sandro Magister called the Pope's comments realpolitik pushed to the extreme and lamented his total silence on religious freedom. On Tuesday, Pope Francis concluded the year of consecrated life, calling on those who have taken their solemn vows to make courageous and prophetic choices. Speaking to some 4,000 consecrated men and women during a Mass at St. Peter's Basilica, the Pope encouraged them to get their hands dirty and to walk to the geographical and existential outskirts of mankind. He declared the year an occasion for renewal and thanksgiving for the service of sisters, brothers, priests, and nuns, as well as an invitation to young Catholics to consider religious vocations. And the European Bishops' Conference is wading into Britain's political debate about whether to remain in the European Union. The General Secretary of the conference, Father Patrick Daly, said this week, "It has to be clear by reflecting the social teachings of the Catholic Church, the most cautious commentator is bound to want the UK to remain in the EU." He emphatically added, quote, "The UK is a member of our family," and he urged Brits to vote to stay and get friends to do the same. The UK referendum is expected in 2017. And in a landmark decision, Britain gave scientists approval on Monday to conduct gene editing experiments on human embryos. The decision by Britain's Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority marks the first time a country's national regulator has approved the technique. Gene editing involves deleting, repairing, or replacing bits of DNA inside living cells in a biological cut-and-paste technique. Embryos would be destroyed after 7 days. Now, scientists say, as they said of embryonic stem cell research in the past, that gene editing could one day lead to treatments for an array of conditions. Critics warn that tweaking the genetic code is the first step to creating designer babies, where not only inherited diseases are avoided, but taller, stronger, smarter, or better-looking children could be sought by parents. And back in the U.S., more good news for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Fresh off their national championship win in football against Clemson last month, University of Alabama Catholics are getting a new student center, and it bears the name of their esteemed coach, Nick Saban. The St. Francis of Assisi campus parish broke ground this week on the 4,600 square foot center for Catholic students. The new building will serve the almost 3,000 Catholics on the Tuscaloosa campus. Coach Saban said that of all the legacies he leaves behind, the Catholic Center will be the one that will touch many lives in a positive ways over the years. Roll Tide. And Italy's most popular saint is going on the road. The remains of Saint Padre Pio, the Capuchin mystic who died in 1968, left San Giovanni Rotondo for Rome this week. Pope Francis wanted Saint Pio's body to be displayed in St. Peter's Basilica during the Jubilee Year of Mercy. Padre Pio spent most of his life hearing confessions and exhibited signs of the stigmata, the wounds of Christ. He was canonized in 2002. In 2008, the saint's body was exhumed and partially reconstructed in a climate-controlled glass reliquary. For many, he is an icon of mercy and will be displayed in the crystal coffin at the Vatican for the faithful to venerate. And speaking of reliquaries, I want to give you a chance to win a type of reliquary, I guess. The good folks at Random House Kids, the publishers of my forthcoming middle grade book, Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls, have created a beautiful, special, limited edition box for review copies of the book, and I thought you might like to have one. Now, this is sure to be the epic must-read middle grade title of the spring. You and your children or your grandchildren are going to love this adventure. To win one of these specialty boxes, all you have to do is go to my Twitter or Facebook accounts and retweet or post the message about the book contest, and you will instantly be registered. I'll select 10 winners at random. You can also email me at raymond@raymondarroyo.com. If you don't have Twitter or Facebook, you can include your contact info and put Will Wilder Contest in the subject line. Will Wilder, The Relic of Perilous Falls, the first of the Will Wilder series, hits bookstores March 8th. But it's available now for pre-order at the EWTN Religious Catalog or wherever books are sold. Do pre-order now for a chance to win some other goodies in the days ahead, and I'll tell you about that. There's a link at RaymondArroyo.com for pre-order and contest info.